Clara Barton began her career as a Civil War nurse and used her passion for caring for others to develop one of the most influential organizations in the United States.
Clara Barton was known for being an American humanitarian who served many soldiers and founded an organization that would later be known as the American Red Cross that would provide emergency assistance and disaster relief in the United States.
She was born on Christmas Day in 1821 in Massachusetts. She was named Clarissa Harlow Barton by her parents, Sarah and Captain Stephen Barton. Her father had formerly served in the American Revolution and was a farmer and state lawmaker. She was raised in the Universalist Church. However, not much else is spoken on her religious beliefs.
Clara grew up with 2 brothers and 2 sisters named David, Stephen, Sally, and Dorothy. Since they were all older than her, Clara was able to gain a lot of education and talents from her family. Even though she was a very shy child, she was quite excellent in her studies and thought to be well-spoken and well-read.
Clara's natural gift with nursing was discovered when her brother David was working on a barn and fell through a plank and became seriously injured. Clara remained by his side and took directions for medication from a physician. Very soon, David recovered, and before turning 13 years old, Clara felt that she had found her life's calling.
At age 18, Clara became a school teacher and for over 12 years spent time in North Oxford, Massachusetts teaching. On May 5, 1839, she was appropriated and known to be very successful and was recognized as one of the most loved teachers by her students.
In 1850, Barton decided to further her education at the Clinton Liberal Institute in New York, an advanced school for women educators. She moved to Massachusetts to teach at a free public school, and in 1 year, the school became so successful the town built a new school and hired a male principal for twice Barton's salary.
Upset by the iniquity, Barton resigned her position and moved to Washington, D.C. From 1854 to 1855, she worked as the first woman clerk in the U.S. Patent Office at a salary equal to men's salary. Subsequently, under political opposition to women working in government offices, her position was reduced to that of copyist. In 1857, under the administration of President James Buchanan, she was eliminated entirely.
On April 21, 1861, 9 days after the start of the American Civil War, a trainload of Union soldiers was mobbed by Confederates in Baltimore, Maryland, and arrived in Washington, D.C. full of dead and wounded with no baggage or supplies. Barton tended to wounded soldiers quartered in the U.S. Senate chamber in Washington.
Clara began working the battlefields in April of 1861 during the Battle of Bull Run. Her main job was to tend to wounded soldiers with bandages, medicines, and other goods that soldiers would need if injured.
Then, after the first Battle of Bull Run, July 21st, Barton established the main agency to obtain and distribute supplies to wounded soldiers. She was given a pass by General William Hammond to ride in Army ambulances to provide comfort to the soldiers and nurse them back to health.
After the war, she started the Office of Missing Soldiers in a Washington, D.C. neighborhood.
Clara also proposed the idea of a national cemetery for the unidentified men who had died in the Andersonville prison in Georgia. She ended up identifying 13,000 of the men buried in this cemetery. This began the memorial for the Tomb of the Unknowns.
Henry Dunant, who was the first Nobel Prize winner, started the Red Cross in Europe. Henry and Clara met in Europe during her travels overseas. They shared the same passion in caring for others, therefore joined efforts in maturing the Red Cross.
The Geneva Treaty, ratified in 1882 by President Arthur and by efforts of Clara Barton, passed in 22 countries. This needed to be passed to start the Red Cross in the United States. Clara was extremely excited because she worked for 10 years to get this treaty.
In 1884, the American amendment to the Geneva Treaty was added at the conference that not only helped with natural disasters, but also wartime efforts. This amendment was a direct result of Barton's work in the United States.
In addition to her work as a teacher, copyist, and humanitarian, Barton was also a suffrage supporter. She was a friend of Susan B. Anthony and spoke at many suffrage conventions, including the first National Women's Suffrage Convention held in Washington, D.C.
On April 12, 1912, at the age of 91, she died in her home in Glen Echo, Maryland, with all her friends by her side.
In addition to disaster relief, the American Red Cross offers services in 5 other areas today: community services that help the needy, communication services and comfort for military members and their family members, the collection, processing, and distribution of blood and blood products, educational programs on preparedness, health, and safety, and international relief and development programs.
Today, there are over 1.2 million volunteers for the Red Cross. Also, there are more than 1,000 chapters of the organization in the United States. One can only imagine how the turnout of the Red Cross exemplifies how Clara Barton imagined it to become so many years ago.
She helped countless Americans through her individual action and the work of the organization she began. Miss Barton's achievements were unparalleled for a woman of her. She was established a free public school, worked in U.S. Patent Office, lectured, lobbied, and founded and led the American Red Cross. Although she was never formally associated with feminist organizations, her attitude about what women could achieve and were capable of was expressed by the way she lived her life.